But you know, this definition is nothing new. You know there's a man who wrote about science 2,000 years ago? His name is Paul. In Romans 1:20, you have a definition of science. Man didn't come up with this idea. You know who came up with this idea of science? God did. For the visible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. We take a look at this word clearly seen. What does it mean? It means to see thoroughly, to perceive clearly. As we continue to study this word with root words and stuff, it means to become acquainted with by experience. To experience. You know what that means? Experimentation. Experimentation is you experience it through a physical process. Are you all with me so far? You do experiments. As we continue on, it means to scrutinize, to observe, to discover by use, to know by experience, which means this word clearly seen means to observe, study, and experimentation. Oh, wasn't that in the definition of empirical science? Yeah. What do we study? We study things that are made. That's creation and nature. Through doing experiments on nature, we come up with what? Knowledge. Isn't that the definition of science? It is. It was in Scripture 2,000 years ago before modern scientists came up with a definition. Interesting. But Paul goes a step further. Through science, we will know that there is a Godhead. Through science, there is so much evidence that God exists, there is no excuse for anyone being an atheist. Did you know that? No excuse. The science that God exists is overwhelming. You're probably thinking, what? We're going to take a look at science tonight. I love to study science. What is science? Science deals with order, purpose, and laws, does it not? Is it an orderly fashion when you do scientific experiments? Yeah. You just cannot do anything you want. There's a certain process you do with your experiments. Is there a purpose for science? Yeah, there's a purpose for science. Are there laws in science? Yeah. Let's take a look at evolution. What's evolution? Evolution is disorder. It's random chance processes, accidents. It's purposeless because there's no intelligence. Once you add intelligence, you got purpose. So it can't have any intelligence without evolution. And it's lawless. Why? It opposes. It goes against the known laws of science. We'll be talking about that. We're going to take a look at God and His creation. God is a God of order. He's a God of purpose. And is He a God of laws? Yes. So when we take a look at science, evolution, and God and His creation, which one of those three do not belong? This is a Sesame Street exercise. Which one doesn't belong? Evolution. Did you know it is impossible to have science if there wasn't an orderly, purposeful, lawful God that created all things? The very fact we have science, I know there's a God. If evolution is true, there would be no science. Everything would be chaos. But it's not. Everything is extremely orderly. You know, your body is functionally extremely orderly. If something goes wrong, guess what happens? You die. Now, we're going to be talking about this. You will not believe how complex you are. Now, we'll look at that this week. Did you know all scientists, even atheists, when using the scientific method, use biblical principles of order, purpose, and laws? Do you know all scientists use biblical principles? There's not one scientist that used evolutionary principles. What's evolutionary principles? Random chance actions. You just kick this chemical in there, you throw this in there, there's no order. Is that how we do scientific experiments? Every scientist rejects evolution to be true and uses biblical principles. Wow. God created and made everything using intelligence with energy or power under control. Now, when scientists make or invent things, you know what they do? You know what they use? They use order, purpose, and laws, and intelligence and energy under control. Wow. Scientists and inventors always use biblical principles. Are you all with me here? Nobody uses evolutionary principles to invent something. Evolutionary principles are random chance actions. Is that how you make computers? Throw a bunch of bricks at some plastic? Try it to your computer. See if you can make a better one. No. It doesn't work. Evolution doesn't work. We know that. 1 Timothy 6:22. Paul's writing Timothy, "O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called." Well, we're going to take a look at this word, science. What does it mean? It basically means knowledge and understanding, intelligence. What does falsely so called mean? It means falsely named. So basically, Paul is warning us about pseudoscience. People are going to try to tell you something that's science when it is really not science. And as we continue to dig into this word, we go a little bit deeper. We look at the word, it means lying or deceitful science. Is there lying, deceitful science out there today? It's at epidemic proportions. Did you know that? That's kind of scary, isn't it? Yes. We're going to take a look at some of that this evening. Paul is warning Christians about deceitful, false scientific information. Did you know evolution falls into that category, which we will discover here this evening? Wow. You're probably thinking to yourself, Rich, you're some kind of nut. Well, let's take a look at it. Let's look at science. Look at what we observe. Now, this is what I was taught in college and high school. How did life get here? Non-living elements of the world, hydrogen, water vapor, and all this kind of stuff. We're going to talk more about this through this weekend. Energy from lightning and volcanic activity and UV light from the sun. Combine these chemicals into more complex molecules. This is what we call biochemical evolution. Then these chemicals getting together to form life. This is what we call abiogenesis, or spontaneous generation. Then this life evolved into the fish kind, into the amphibian kind, reptilian kind, mammal kind, ape kind, kingdom, finally into modern man. This is what we call macroevolution. Evolution only means change. That's what evolution means. Macro means big change. Evolution, Darwinian evolution, is one kind of creature changing into a completely different kind of creature. Okay? And if you go from particles to people, this is a huge jump. This is what we call mega evolution. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. What I just showed you here, has this ever been observed in science? Has any of this ever been observed in science? What I just showed you, none of what I have shown you has ever been scientifically observed. None of it. For it to be science, it has to be what? Observable. That means what I just showed you is not what? It's not science. None of what I showed you is science. It's never been observed. It's never been duplicated. I'm going to demonstrate that here this weekend. And it has to be repeatable. Yes, refutable, and so on. Interesting. Yes. Evolution is not science. It is a philosophy posing as science. Did Paul warn us about this? Yeah, he warned us about this 2,000 years ago. You know the evolutionary philosophy we have in place was already prophesied 2,000 years ago? Did you know that? Everything that was taught in college was already prophesied 2,000 years ago that it was coming. Peter writes about that. Wow! Did God know what was coming? Oh yeah. He knows. He's already prophesied the evolutionary philosophy in place today. He's warning Christians about it, and people fall for the same thing. Wow. Is evolution a new concept? How many of you were taught that Darwin came up with the theory of evolution? That's not true. Darwin never came up. He just plagiarized. Did you know that? No. Actually, 330 BC, there was a famous Greek philosopher named Aristotle. He promoted a process called spontaneous generation, and another name for it is abiogenesis. They were taught that dead things would evolve into living things. They taught that meat would evolve into flies. Yeah. What are you laughing at? Okay. That's okay. I'm just giving you a bad time. That was the science of the day for 2,000 years. Oh, they did all kinds of experiments. They put meat on a shelf. After a few days, they had little white worms called maggots, and then the maggots changed into flies. They did some really hard experiments. They took meat and put it high up on shelves. There's no way the maggots could crawl to that meat. And guess what would happen in a few days? Maggots and flies. Everybody knew that decaying meat changed into what? Maggots and flies. If you were a professor in college, guess what you taught your students? Decaying meat evolved into maggots and flies. If you were one of those stupid fundamental Christians who believed that flies came from flies, You weren't very scientific? And then some guys came along and they disproved all that. Yeah. We'll talk more about that. Interesting. And Aristotle, he did research. He was at some ponds or lakes. And when you're at ponds or lakes, sometimes you feel this goo. Have you ever felt that goo in ponds? You feel it? Oh, I came from Minnesota. I can show you all kinds of goo. There's all kinds of goo in these ponds. You feel it. It felt and smelled like fish. And so since this goo felt and smelled like fish, he believed that the goo in the pond evolved into eels or fish. Now, have you heard that before? Yeah, I just told you that. Just go right here. The goo evolved into what? This is nothing new. The Greeks already talked about it. That Darwin didn't come up with that. Isn't that interesting? No. Evolution is not a new concept. The Greeks believed in evolution. The Romans believed in evolution. The Sumerians believed in evolution. The Egyptians and the Babylonians all believed in evolution. And I've got another program called The Origin of the Religion of Evolution. I start with Darwin and keep tracing it back in time, back in time, back in time. And I trace evolution to its source. And maybe if I come back again, we'll get to that. But I won't have enough time this weekend. That's in Genesis chapter 3. Now, take a look at science. The nature of science is using the scientific method in the pursuit of truth. To try to find things out. How things work. Now, Proverbs 25:2. It is the glory of God to conceal the thing, but the honor of kings to search out a matter. Does God want us to search out a matter? To find out how things work? Yes, He does. This word search out means to investigate, to examine thoroughly. He wants us to find out how things work. We go into this one here, Ecclesiastes. Talks about, and search out, seek and search out by wisdom, and so on, concerning all things that are done under the heaven. That means all things that are made. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therein with. That means God wants us to check things out. He doesn't want us to check our brains out at the door, does He? Do you know brains are not a vestigial organ? God put them there for a purpose, and He wants us to use it, and that's what it says here. We take in this word search out. You know what this word search out means? This word search out means to spy out, to spy, to find out how to do something, to spy out, reconnaissance. You know what God is telling us here? God is telling us what's going on here is like one country spying and stealing another country's superior technology. It's like the Russians coming to the United States, stealing our top secret, plans, and then going back and building it. You know what God is telling us to do? You spy out my creation and you figure out how it works. So you can use this technology to better mankind. Isn't that interesting? We take a look at God. God's intelligence and technology is infinitely superior to ours, is it not? Yeah. So we should spy out and learn from His creation and His Word to improve our knowledge and technology. Who invented flight? God did. Who invented sonar? God did. I can go on about everything, but computers is nothing new. They're just trying to copy what your brain is doing. Computers are a poor excuse of what your brain does. Did you know that? See, science is for His glory and our edification. Yes. Now, Proverbs, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Interesting. Because they rejected the fear of the Lord, they rejected knowledge. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of His mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. Apply thy heart unto instruction, and thy ears to the words of knowledge. Goes on, and beside this, giving all diligence, and add to your faith virtue, and to virtue. Does God want you to learn things? You better believe it. He wants you to fill that mind with science. No. He wants you to know how things work. God wants us to fill our minds with knowledge and true scientific information. I mean true scientific, not false pseudoscience, but true stuff. Now, going back to here. God wants us to study His creation, which is science, which is true, literal, biblical creationism. Creationism should inspire scientists to search out matter and discover incredible technology. I mean, did you know one pinhead of DNA has more information than 2 million 2-terabyte hard drives? Did you know that? One pinhead of DNA has over 2 million 2-terabyte hard drives. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? And that's what we know so far. I think that's already outdated. I think it's more than that. So let's study DNA and find out how we can make something better. So, by embracing true science, it will point us to the truth, and Jesus is the... Science will always point us to God. Always. You know, the Bible has information about biology, geology, hydrology, meteorology, astronomy, anthropology, genetics, physics, and much more. We're going to be hitting some of this weekend. Limitations of science. People don't understand the limitations of science. One of the limitations of science is scientists have limited knowledge. I asked this question last night. Of all the knowledge there is in the known universe, how much do you think humans really know? How much? 1%. Would you all agree? Not a lot. No, not a lot. Of all the knowledge there is to know in the world, humans know very little. Interesting. So who are you going to put your faith in? No. Now, also, humans are imperfect. That means scientists make mistakes. They do. We'll look at that. Scientists can misinterpret the data. Oh yeah, there's a lot of misinterpretation of data. Actually, the data scientists collect through experiments may be flawed. Yeah, we've seen that. 4 common 3 facts about the scientist in the white coat. He's unbiased, he's objective, he's infallible, and he always wears a white coat. Well, 4 truths about scientists. He is not objective. Look at his books. Most of the scientists today have been taught only what? Evolution. They're completely ignorant of the information I will be teaching you here this weekend. Interesting. So how are they going to interpret their data or their experiments? According to what they've been trained. He is biased. Whether he believes in evolution or whether he believes in creation, is that going to influence how he interprets his data with experiments? Yeah, it will. Scientists are not neutral. They have biases. He is human, and humans make mistakes, and he seldom wears a white coat. There's one more thing about scientists. Humans are born sinners, thus in rebellion against God. Are they not? That means if a scientist is not a believer, he's in rebellion against God. So how is he going to interpret his data? According to his rebellion against God? Now, I don't want to put scientists down. As long as they stay in with the realm of science, they can do a lot of things. They can make computers and man into outer space. But when they step in the realm of speculation, which we will be talking about this weekend, they no longer become scientists, but they become philosophers or speculators. That's not science. Now, take a look at Earth. This is what I was taught in high school and college. The present is the key to the past, which is evolution. To understand what happened in the past, you have to understand the process that's taking place today. Were you taught that? That's what I was taught. That's evolution. Well, we're going to take a look at that. If you use that state of thinking, you can make lots of mistakes. I'll demonstrate that. Here is a canyon in the state of Washington. There's a river running through the canyon. If we take present-day processes of this river eroding in this canyon, we would assume that this river probably took hundreds of thousands or millions of years of time to make that canyon. If you use present as a key to the past. But if you use that thinking, you would be totally wrong on the formation of this canyon. Did you know that? How did this canyon get here? Well, we're going to go back to the state of Washington. This is Mount St. Helens before it erupted in the spring of 1980. In the spring of 1980, Mount St. Helens took up a very bad habit. It began to smoke. Shortly after it began to smoke, it erupted, and it blew the top off of this mountain. And actually, this mountain erupted differently than most mountains. Most mountains or volcanoes erupt straight up. This one didn't. It erupted to the side. The whole side of this mountain gave way. Roughly 3/4 of a cubic mile of material came down, and some of that flowed right down here in the Spirit Lake, right back down. It took that blew a lot of, it really blew its top, it did. We're going to talk more about this on day 4 of creation. It deposited these layers. These layers were deposited in a matter of minutes or seconds. It didn't take a lot of time. I was thought it probably took 100,000 years to make all those layers. One huge catastrophe made all those layers. Wow. Then a couple of years later, there was another small eruption. Another mud flow came over the previous mud flow deposit in 1980. And this mud flow made this canyon in a single day. The river did not make the canyon. The canyon made the river. The canyon was there before the river. Interesting. If you use the present as the key to the past, you would scientifically make a blunder here. Totally. The present is the key to the past, which is evolution. Science can make mistakes with this worldview, and they do. Same way with the Grand Canyon. I was always taught the river made the canyon. You know, I was there a few years ago. Did a tour through the Grand Canyon, and their new conclusion is the river did not make the canyon. We've been telling them for decades the river did make the canyon. The canyon made the river. They've got another idea of how the canyon was formed, and that was a no-brainer. That one's easy to refute. They didn't get any better, they got worse. To understand how that canyon got there, you've got to understand what happened in the past. The past is the key to the present. The present isn't the key to the past is the key to the present. Yeah. So, we'll take a look at this. To discover truth and avoid mistakes. You don't want to fall into mistakes, do you? You all hopefully want to know the truth. We need to start with a source of all knowledge, wisdom, and understanding so we don't make mistakes. Well, is there a source? Now, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. So if you want wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, you start with what? Fear of the Lord. Is the Lord a good source of all knowledge and wisdom? Yeah. Does He know everything? Yeah. Now, of all the knowledge there is known in the universe, how much do you think God really knows? All of it. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the wisdom of man who knows very little, or do you want to start with the wisdom of God who knows everything? You give me the mind. Okay. Of all the knowledge there is known in the universe, God knows it. So that's when I do research. You know where I start? I start with a source of all knowledge, so I don't make mistakes. Yes. Because if you don't know everything, you can make a lot of mistakes. So I look through the eyes of Scripture, and I can condemn false knowledge, and I can gain true knowledge. Because evolution cannot be true at the same time as creation. Some of those is false knowledge. And I'm going to use this book so we can gain truth. I call this a true historical science book because somebody was there in the past, observed it, wrote it down to me, and I can read it and I know what happened in the past and know how things got here. We'll talk about that here this weekend. Now, what brought us out of the dark ages? You know what brought us out of the dark ages? Getting back to the Word of God to be true. Did you know that? Getting back to the Bible to be true brought us out of the dark ages. Yes, people don't realize that Christianity gave birth to science. Because these theologians were getting back to the Word of God to be literally true. God is a God of order, purpose, and laws. So if God is a God of purpose, of order, and laws, His creation should have what? Order, purpose, and laws. So they studied nature, and guess what they discovered? Order, purpose, and laws. And from this information, we built the technology we have today. Did you know that? Wow. All branches of science were once called not science, but natural theology. Wow, isn't that interesting? See, they were spying out. They were trying to understand how everything got here. Looking at this statue, do you see something wrong there looking at that statue? What is he doing? He's nailing himself to me. Pretty good, but what is he doing? What is the statue making himself, isn't it? Can this happen? How many of you believe that this can happen? Can statues make themselves? None of you believe that? Okay, you know what you're actually looking at? The statue is making itself. It has become its own sculpture. It's changing rock into a statue. That's a change. You know what you're actually looking at? This is evolution. Evolution teaches we can make ourselves. That's evolution, really. That's evolution of a statue. According to evolution, I was taught dirt and gas and elements and energy of the world. If you give it enough time for natural processes, that means that dirt can come together to make you. In other words, evolution teaches we make ourselves. That's evolution. Evolution says there's no need of a sculpture or a creator separate from ourselves. We are our own creator, or evolution teaches we made ourselves. Give it enough time. Are y'all grasping this? That's what evolution teaches. But if we look at the wisdom of God, we know this is false. Know ye that the Lord, He is God. It is He that hath made us, and not we are. Right away, I know that that's false. Because God says it's false. Can we make ourselves with dirt? No. Take a look at the statue. Give it enough time, anything can happen, right? Isn't that what they teach you? Give enough time, anything can happen. So if you got a rock out there, give enough time, and you can make a statue out of itself. Is that what happens? No. Evolution makes the impossible possible with lots of time. That's the magic wand for evolution, is time. Give enough time, anything can happen. You know that doesn't work that way? Time is no friend to evolution, people. We're going to take a look at the laws of science. It is no friend. Time is an enemy to evolution. We know scientifically that this doesn't happen. Over time, rocks do not change into statues, but over time, statues will break down into... Is that what happens? Yeah. There's a law. That follows a law. Now, statues are very simple compared to complexity of life. You know a statue is just a bunch of rock chips. That's all it is, just a bunch of chips on a rock. That's a statue. Statues are very, very simple. Man can make statues, but man cannot make life from the elements of the earth. Did you know that? Can we take dirt and change it into live life? We can't do that. We're not even close. Which means man neither has the intelligence nor the technology to take the elements of the earth and the energy to make life. But evolution, which has no intelligence and has no technology, but it made life. That doesn't tell us much about our scientists today, does it? If something that has no intelligence, no technology, made life, and our brightest scientists don't even know how it completely works yet, what does that tell us about the intelligence of our scientists? Are you all with me here? Every scientist should be appalled at the whole thought of evolution, that evolution can do something that they cannot. Wow. Think about it. If evolution is true, that means we're dumber than dirt, blinder than chance. Because we can't do what the dirt does. We don't have time. Whoever made man is far more intelligent and powerful than man, is he not? We're going to take a look at power. We're going to take a look at God's. You will not understand the power of God. You will not. His power is, I can't understand His power. No. We're going to take a look at that. Through Genesis. We take a look at it. We know scientifically that this won't happen. We know that. Charles Darwin theory, the Holy War. Who really opposed Darwin? Popper belief has it back to front. Did you know the scientists of Darwin's day rejected Darwin's theory? Did you know that? People always thought the church rejected Darwin's theory. No, it was the scientists. There are a number of scientists of Darwin's day that rejected Darwin's theory of evolution. Louis Pasteur developed the law of biogenesis. We're going to talk about this. That life only comes from pre-existing life. Louis Pasteur destroyed the theory of evolution. I mean, he nailed it. Nailed in the coffin. We're going to talk about that. No. You know who really supported Darwin's theory? The liberal worldly church embraced Darwin's evolutionary ideas. Did you know that? It wasn't the scientists that supported Darwin. They knew it didn't work. Some spent decades disproving it. Who supported it? The liberal church did. Because that gave them the rejection of the literal reading of Genesis so they can come up with their own theology. Wow. Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of. Is it a lack of scientific knowledge in the world today? Oh yes. Big time. Is there a lack of biblical knowledge in the world today? Oh yes, big time. Because of lack of true science and lack of true biblical knowledge, are people lost? Yes. People are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Lack of the fear of the Lord causes a lack of knowledge. Now, did you know fraud in scientific research is at epidemic proportions? Is that kind of scary? How can we recognize fraudulent research? It's pretty easy to recognize fraudulent research. Yes. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says, prove all things and hold fast that which is. Do we need to prove all things to make sure that this is true or not? Yes. No. Once a person rejects the truth and true science, scripture, and creation, all you have is a lie and pseudoscience to believe in, which is evolution. We're going to continue to talk about that this weekend. Now, how are you to recognize pseudoscience? This is some of the false scientific research done in the past. Ernst Haeckel lived in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He came up with the biogenetic law on progeny recapitulation phylogeny. Another name for it is embryonic recapitulation. What did he teach? He drew the embryos of fish, salamanders, turtles, chickens, rabbits, and humans. He drew these embryos, and since all these embryos look similar, he taught that a baby in the mother's womb starts in the fish stage, then evolves into the amphibian stage, then evolves into the reptilian stage, then into the mammal stage. By the end of 9 months of gestation, you finally evolve into a human being. That's what he taught. First thing we should have said is what? It's a fraud. It's false science. Because true science in the Bible says, day one of conception, you are totally human. Right away, that was fraudulent. You should have used Scripture as our source of knowledge and said, that is a fraud. Well, this is what he drew, but you see all these embryos here? This is what the embryos actually look like. Did he fudge his data? Total fraud. Total fraud. Deceived a lot of people. Abortion is built on this fraudulent science. Did you know that? It's all built on this. That means if you abort a child in the mother's womb, you're not removing a lump of tissue, or you're not removing a baby, you're removing a lump of tissue. It's still in the frog stage, or the amphibian stage, or the fish stage. Are you all with me here? Nice. Let me go on. This is a drawing of a human embryo. I was taught that a human embryo has folds in the skin here, that these are supposed to be gill slits that we evolved from fish. This is a yolk sac that we evolved from reptile. This is a tail that we evolved from a monkey-like creature. Right away, we should have known what? This is a fraud. This is false science. True science in the Bible says, day one of conception, you are totally human. Did you evolve from fish? No. They did some more research. True science discovered that these are not gill slits. These are folds in the skin, and they developed in some of the organs in the inner ear and the throat. We never had gill slits. We never evolved from fish. This is all false. It's a fraud. This is not a yolk sac. It's a blood-forming organ. It produces blood for your body until some of the organs are developed in your body, so they take over and this kind of dries up. This is not a tail. It's called a coccyx. If you fall down and hurt your coccyx, is it easy to walk and sit? No. You've got 9 muscles attached to that bone. Without that bone, you cannot walk into your graves. What happens is, in the development of a fetus, or a baby, this develops first, the coccyx, then it triggers the legs that develop, and this is all involved with the skin and muscles and so on. We never evolved from monkeys. This is all fraudulent research. No, so it goes on, but it's still being taught today. This is Time Magazine, 2002. It shows these embryos here. It talks about embryo of human. It has primitive heart, eyes, and blood vessels. We go on. It has emerging hands and legs still resemble flipper-like paddles. Did we evolve from flipper? Dolphin? No, we evolved from fish. This is all false. It goes down here. The human embryo looks no different from that of a pig, chicken, or elephant. That is totally false. Any scientist worth his salt, he can tell a fertilized egg on day one of conception that it's human being. Wow. This is scientifically been disproven. This human embryo has a tail, yolk sac, and gills. You know that this fraudulent research is still being taught today? This is not science. This is deception. Science says they are totally 100% false. This is a fraud. Because true science in the Bible says what? Day one of conception, you are totally human. Yeah. This is in the science book. Talking about a 7-month-old fetus. Now, this is not a 7-month-old fetus, by the way. By 7 months, the fetus looks from the outside like a tiny normal baby, but it is not. Right away, we should have known, this is a fraud, this is false science. True science, the Bible teaches day one of conception, you are totally what? It is. Did you know 34% of all babies born at 5.5 months survive? This baby right here is 5.8 months old. It weighs 8.6 ounces. What does that look like? But according to that evolutionary book, it is not a human being, is it? It may look like a human being, but it's not. But what is it? Is it a human being? Yes. What I find interesting, if people can deceive the whole world and say that's not a human being and they can abort it, people will fall for any lie, no matter how dumb it is. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Is it easy to deceive people? Oh, it's very easy to deceive people. That's not a problem at all. Hitler deceived the whole nation. Wow. This is interesting. There was a doctor that had to do a surgery on an unborn baby. Before the doctor had a chance to soak the mother's womb, that baby reached out its hand and grabbed the doctor's finger. Is that a human being in the mother's womb? Yes, it is. Science says that's a human being. The Bible says that's a human being. Isn't that interesting? Wow. Evolution says it's not. Does teaching false science affect people's lives? Millions, billions of people are being killed because of the pseudoscience of evolution. Did you know that? This is serious stuff. It really is. People's lives are at stake. Yes, people are murdered because of the pseudoscience of the evolutionary philosophy. Okay. Vestigial organs. How many of you were taught that we had vestigial organs? Appendix, tonsils, and all this. That's what I was taught. Eyebrows, tonsils, wisdom teeth, so on. They had no function, just leftover evolutionary junk. Junk DNA, that's just scrap parts that we evolved from fish and so on. Right away, we should have known that was a fraud. False science, true science in the Bible says God does not make junk, does He? You're not junk, are you? No. God doesn't make junk, and all parts have a function. Through scientific research, you know what they discovered? We have no vestigial organs. God is omniscient, His creation would be very complex, and all organs and DNA would have a function, and you know that's what they're discovering? Creationists were doing research on this stuff and finding out why did God put those body parts there in the first place? Because they have a purpose. God doesn't make junk. You're not a junkyard. You're very special. You have value and you have purpose. Because whoever made you must love you because you're very complex. We're going to take a look at that in the next few days. You're extremely complex. There are no vestigial organs or junk DNA. They, again, all have function. Yes. Time Magazine, How We Became Human. Take a look at this. Chimps and humans share almost 99% of their DNA. New discoveries reveal how we can be so alike and yet so different. Right away, we should have known what? It's a fraud, false science. True science, the Bible says humans are humans and apes are. Everything reproduces after their own kind. Well, new research, they discovered men and chimps are less alike. At one time, they thought we were 98.5%. This article has 95%. Depends on whose research you look at. Some people have us down to 70% similar. If you understood how they got 99%, you would say, what? It was not good science at all. In my viewpoint, it was a scientific blunder. It was a deception. Then should have known this is a fraud and false science, because true science in the Bible says everything reproduces after their own kind or family. This whole thing was a deliberate hoax. Did you know that? A scientist over in England was upset. He worked in a museum. He was upset over his pain. So he took a human skull cap and an ape jaw with ape teeth, deliberately filed down the teeth to make them look more human-like, stained them all, and hid them in a gravel pit for scientists to find. Scientists found this fraud. They didn't know it was a fraud. They were looking for creatures that were half man and half ape, and guess what they thought they found? The creatures that have man and half ape. It fooled the scientists for 40 years. Did you know that? About 500 PhDs, or about 500 scientists got their PhDs by doing fraud, by doing research on this fraud. This guy completely fooled the scientific community. Blunder. Is it easy to fool people? Not a problem. Once you reject the truth, I mean, all you got to deal with is a lie. It's easy to fool people. No. How many of you have seen the pepper moth experiment? No. This is how it goes. Just in case you haven't heard of it, over in England they had the pepper moths. The tree bark had light on it, so the tree bark was light in color. They had light pepper moths and dark pepper moths. It's far more complex than this, but this is a simplified version. See, the light pepper moths were camouflaged, so the birds couldn't see the light ones. But the dark ones, the birds could see, so the birds came and ate those, and it's supposed to be an increase of light pepper moths. Then along came the Industrial Revolution, and all this soot and pollution killed the lichen, and the tree bark turned dark, so the dark ones were camouflaged, and the light ones could be seen, so the birds ate the light ones, and then increased the dark ones. Now they kind of cleaned up their act there, so it's all going back to this again. Let's take a look at this experiment. What was there before they did the experiment? Pepper moths. What did they study? Pepper moths. What do we have there today? Pepper moths. Is that evolution? You know there is not one scrap of Darwinian evolution in this picture. They started with light and dark pepper moths, and they finished with dark and light pepper moths. No new genetics, no new body parts, no new nothing. All they got is pepper moths. Did it deceive a lot of people? Millions. I was over in the University of Wyoming in Laramie. I was with this Christian guy. He put this booth up in the unit of the student center, and he invited me to come, and so I would talk to these students as they come, and I asked them, do you believe in evolution? Oh, sure. One gal said, I believe in evolution because of the pepper moth experiment. I said, you want me to tell you more about the pepper moth experiment? And she said, yes. So I did. Now they realize that pepper moths do not live on tree bark. They live high up in the tree underneath leaves. These pepper moths are either dead pepper moths glued to the tree bark, or they're frozen moths that they were so cold they just stuck to the tree bark and they couldn't fly away. And these moths are nocturnal. So the real enemy to the moth is not the bird, it's the bat. They pick them up in sonar. They don't care what color they are. The whole experiment was a deliberate fraud. Her eyes got about this big around, she just turned around and walked away. Wow, did I blow her bubble? No. There was another one talking about bacteria. We'll talk about bacteria. If bacteria doesn't show God's glory, I don't know what it does. It's amazing when we study bacteria. There's nothing evolutionary about it. Yes. The whole thing was a fraud, false science. True science, the Bible says everything reproduces after their own kind. That's exactly what happened. This is all biblical principles. Yes, we'll talk about that. Scientific American. Well, looking at quantum gaps in the Big Bang Theory. Yes. Why our best explanation in how the universe evolved must be fixed, or are there big problems with the Big Bang? It's a big nut. It doesn't work. Yes. Star problem with the Big Bang. Halton Arp. I talked a little bit about him last night. Halton Arp is an evolutionist. He did research on redshifts and galaxies. According to his information, observational evidence has become overwhelming, and the Big Bang has in reality been... God didn't start things with the Big Bang. Right away, we should know the Big Bang was a fraud. It was a co-creation, and we'll talk about that. Do we need to be aware of pseudoscience and fraud in science? Yeah, we do. How do we recognize pseudoscience and fraud in science? We need to understand what? Scripture. And this is a good paving break. We're going to take a look at Genesis chapter 1 a little bit. Let's take a break, because it's after 9:30. We've been here for talking about for a whole hour. Is that right? Am I looking at that right? 8:30. I'm sorry.
Okay, everybody. introduction. Greet the people around you. Introduce yourself. Say hi.